The Golden Taste restaurant was bustling that evening. Families laughed, couples raised their glasses, and the air was filled with warmth. But for Maya, a young black waitress of just 22 years old, that night would turn into a nightmare she would never forget. Among the customers sat a man in an expensive suit, a shiny watch gleaming on his wrist, and an arrogant stare that seemed to pierce through anyone he looked at. He was the kind of man who believed the world revolved around him. But what he didn't know was that his cruel words would not be remembered for power, but for the shame they would bring him. And it was in front of everyone, in the crowded dining hall, that his first drop of poison spilled. "Waitress!" the voice thundered, sharp and commanding, as if calling for a servant, not a person. Maya took a deep breath, straightened her apron, and approached the table with a polite smile. "Good evening, sir. May I take your order?" The man slowly lifted his eyes, scanning her from head to toe with open disdain. A crooked smirk spread across his lips. "Good evening?" he repeated mockingly. "I didn't come here for pleasantries. I want my food, now." Maya's heart raced, but she kept her tone calm. "Of course, sir. What would you like to order?" He sighed loudly, tossing the menu on the table carelessly. "This place should hire people who actually know what they're doing. I've already wasted enough time waiting." A few customers glanced over but quickly turned away, not daring to get involved. Maya steadied her breath once more, forcing her composure. "I understand, sir. I'll take care of your order right away." But he wasn't finished. "And make sure it doesn't take forever like last time," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "And it better be perfect. I don't tolerate sloppy work." An uncomfortable silence spread across the room. Maya, holding back the lump in her throat, simply wrote down the order and walked away, clinging to the dignity her mother had always taught her. "Daughter, never bow your head. Those who humiliate you only reveal how small they truly are." At that table, a silent war had just begun, and Maya had no idea that this would be only the first battle in a long night of trials. The dining room buzzed with conversation, but at Maya's table, the atmosphere was tense. She returned with a glass of water for the man, hoping to ease his impatience until his food was ready. "Here you go, sir," she said softly, placing the glass in front of him. The man leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms with exaggerated arrogance. He didn't touch the glass. Instead, he eyed her with a cruel curiosity, as though she were an exhibit in a museum. "So this is the kind of staff they hire now?" he said loudly, making sure nearby tables could hear. His voice dripped with sarcasm. "No wonder the service here has gone downhill." Maya froze for a moment, the sting of his words cutting deeper than she wanted to show. But before she could respond, he pressed on. "Tell me, girl," he said, dragging out the word girl with deliberate contempt. "Do you even know what fine dining is? Or do you only serve fast food where you come from?" A few gasps slipped from surrounding tables, but no one dared to step in. Some diners lowered their eyes to their plates. Others shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to hear. Maya's lips trembled, but she steadied herself, remembering her mother's voice in her mind. "Hold your ground, Maya. Dignity is stronger than cruelty," she answered calmly, though her chest burned. "I'm here to serve you, sir. Your order will be ready shortly." The man sneered, tilting his head. "Oh, I'm sure it will. Just make sure you don't mess it up. I don't expect much from someone like you anyway." The word "someone like you" hung in the air like poison. Maya felt the blood rush to her face, but she refused to let a tear fall. She turned and walked back toward the kitchen, each step heavier than the last. Behind her, a couple at the next table exchanged a glance. The woman whispered to her husband, "This is terrible. Why doesn't anyone say something?" Her husband shook his head nervously. "Don't get involved. It's not our problem." And so the room returned to its chatter as if nothing had happened. Only Maya carried the weight of the insult, her spirit bruised but not broken. She whispered a silent prayer in her heart as she passed through the swinging kitchen doors. "Lord, give me strength, don't let me break in front of them." What Maya didn't know was that this would not be the end of his cruelty. The humiliation had only just begun. The clinking of glasses, The low hum of conversations and the soft notes of a piano playing in the background could not hide the tension lingering at Maya's table. Word of the customer's harsh words had spread quietly through the dining room. People had heard, people had seen, and yet nobody moved. Maya returned to refill the man's water. Her steps steady though her heart pounded. She placed the jug carefully on the table. Finally, the man muttered, rolling his eyes. "Took you long enough." He then looked around, raising his voice as though giving a performance. "This is the problem with this country," he said loudly, gesturing at Maya with a flick of his hand. "We let anyone work in respectable places, and this is what happens. Standards drop." The words sliced through the air. A hush fell over the nearby tables, forks pausing mid-air. Maya's face flushed hot, her pulse quickening. At the table nearest to them, a young couple exchanged worried glances. The woman whispered, "He can't talk to her like that." But her partner shook his head. Don't get involved. We don't know who he is." At another table, two older women whispered to each other. One looked at Maya with sympathy, her lips pressing together. The other simply muttered, "Poor girl," and then returned to sipping her wine, as if sympathy were enough. But no one spoke up. No one defended her. Maya forced herself to stand tall, though her chest tightened with every breath. She managed a professional smile, the kind she had practiced countless times. "Your food will be out soon, sir." The man smirked, satisfied with her restraint. "Oh, I'll be waiting," he said, leaning back smugly. "But don't think your fake smile fools anyone. Everyone here knows you don't belong in a place like this." The words echoed in Maya's ears, louder than the chatter of the room. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered empty glasses from another table. Still, she held her head high. But inside, her thoughts screamed, "Why won't anyone say something? Why are they all watching me suffer in silence?" From the corner of the room, the restaurant's owner, Mr. Carter, watched carefully. His sharp eyes followed every exchange, every cruel word. But he did not yet intervene. Instead, he folded his arms, observing as though weighing the situation. Meanwhile, Maya passed by a family with two children. The little girl looked up at her with wide eyes and whispered innocently, "Mommy, why is that man being so mean to her?" The mother stiffened, shushing her child quickly. "Eat your food, honey." Maya's heart ached at the sound. She wanted to answer the child, to say something about kindness and dignity, but she knew this was not her place. Not yet. So she carried on, enduring the silence, carrying the weight of everyone's fear and cowardice. Each second that passed without someone speaking up felt like a betrayal, and in that heavy silence Maya realized, sometimes silence can wound just as deeply as words. But the night was far from over. The man had more venom to spit, and soon his cruelty would push even deeper. Behind the swinging kitchen doors, the clatter of pans and the hiss of steam drowned out the dining room's chatter. Maya stood by the service station, hands braced on the cold stainless steel counter. Her breath trembled. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, the words barely a breath. "Don't let me break." Elena, a senior waitress with kind eyes and a fast stride, slipped beside her and lowered her voice. "You okay, honey?" Maya nodded, though the motion felt brittle. "I'm fine." Elena glanced toward the dining room. "That man at table 12, he's loud. You want me to talk to the manager?" Maya followed her gaze. Through the porthole window, the man sat like a king expecting tribute. "No," she said softly. "I need to handle it." Elena hesitated. "People like him. They push because they can, but you don't have to carry it alone." Maya forced a small smile. "Thank you. I'll be careful." Chef Andre slid a bowl of soup onto the pass, the surface shimmering. "Table 12, French onion, and the ribeyes almost up. You good, Maya?" "I'm good, chef." Her voice steadied as she checked the ticket twice, aligning the bowls, polishing a spoon until it shone. If she couldn't control the man's cruelty, she could at least control the service. Precision was dignity. Dignity was armor. As she folded a napkin, a memory flickered. Her mother in their small apartment, the late afternoon sun cutting gold across a worn table. "Baby," her mother had said, squeezing her hands, "when the world tries to make you small, stand taller. God doesn't abandon the just." The warmth of that voice wrapped around her now like a shawl. "Order up," Chef Andre called. "Careful, that soup's hot." Maya set the bowl on a tray, added the side plate and spoon, straightened the ramekin of croutons. Her hands stopped trembling. She lifted the tray and pushed through the doors. The room greeted her with a hush that wasn't quite silence. People were pretending to talk, pretending not to watch. Table 12 turned toward her like a stage light. She placed the bowl gently before the man. "Your French onion soup, sir." He peered into it, sniffing. Then louder, "Did you wash your hands?" A couple at the next table flinched. Maya kept her expression calm. "Yes, sir." He smirked. "Make sure you keep them clean while you're hovering over my food." Maya stepped back, measured. "Would you like cracked pepper, sir?" He waved her off with 2 fingers, a dismissal more cutting than a curse. "Go fetch bread. And try not to take all night." A pulse thudded at her temple. She nodded and turned, counting her steps the way she'd learned during long shifts. 1 breath, 1 step, 1 choice to remain steady. On her way to the service station, she nearly collided with Mr. Carter, the owner, who stood near the host stand with a neutral expression that gave away nothing. His eyes flicked to table 12, then back to Maya. He said nothing. Not yet. She returned with the bread basket and set it down. The man tugged 1 roll free and broke it apart with slow deliberation, as if searching for something to criticize. "Cold," he announced. "Do you serve anything properly here?" Maya reached for the basket. "I can bring fresh." "Forget it." He dipped the bread into the soup, lifted it, let it drip. "You know what the problem is?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Standards. People think they deserve to be here just because they showed up. No one earns anything anymore." Across the aisle, an older woman set her fork down, eyes narrowed with quiet fury. Her companion touched her wrist, a silent plea to stay out of it. The woman's jaw tightened, but she looked away. Maya steadied her tone. "Your steak will be out shortly, sir." He leaned back, surveying her, making sure his words landed where they could bruise. "Just keep up, girl. Don't embarrass yourself." The word stung. Maya let the syllable pass through her, prayed it would not anchor itself in her chest. "I'll check on your entree." She slipped away, shoulders square, chin lifted, 1 small act of defiance. At the pass, the ribeye rested under a gloss of butter, the scent rich and clean. She inspected the plate, adjusted the asparagus, dabbed a dot of sauce. Perfection, as if excellence could speak where words failed. Through the doorway, Mr. Carter angled himself for a better view, his gaze locked on the man's hands, his tone to the staff calm, but clipped. "Give table 12 space," he murmured to the host. "Keep the path clear, and make sure cameras have the angle." The host blinked, puzzled but nodded. Maya lifted the steak onto a clean tray. She inhaled once, steadying herself. Elena brushed her arm. "You've got this." Back at table 12, she set the plate down with care. The man leaned forward, an ugly anticipation in his eyes, as if waiting for an excuse to ignite. His elbow nudged near the soup bowl just enough to make the porcelain tremble. "Careful," Maya said quietly. He smiled, slow and mean. "Why? Afraid of a little mess?" 2 fingers curled behind the bowl's rim, casual, deliberate. The soup quivered, a thin ripple shimmering across the surface. Maya held her breath. Around them, utensils paused mid-air. Conversation stuttered into silence. Even the piano seemed to hesitate on a note. "Because," the man said, voice satin smooth and poisonous, "some messes are better seen than heard." His fingers twitched, the bowl teetered, and the night leaned toward the edge of something that would be impossible to ignore. The ribeye sat steaming on the table, butter sliding down its edges in a golden sheen. Maya placed the plate carefully, her movements precise, calm, controlled. She adjusted the cutlery, then stepped back with quiet grace. "Your ribeye, medium rare," she said softly. The man picked up his knife, pressed it into the steak and sliced. The meat yielded perfectly, juices flowing just as they should. He chewed slowly, theatrically, as though giving the dish a performance review. Then he smirked. "Well, at least the kitchen knows what it's doing." His eyes slid to Maya. "Shame the service ruins the experience." Maya swallowed the heat rising in her throat. "Is there anything else I can bring you, sir?" "Yes," he said, leaning forward, voice sharp. "You can learn how to do your job properly." Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She turned to leave, but his voice lashed out again. "Wait." She froze. The man deliberately tilted the soup bowl with the back of his hand. The hot liquid spilled, cascading across the white linen tablecloth, dripping onto the polished floor. Gasps rippled through the dining room. "Unbelievable," he boomed, his voice carrying. "She can't even keep the table clean." Maya blinked in shock, her pulse thundering in her ears. "Sir, I didn't. Clean it," he barked, pointing at the mess like a general ordering a soldier. "Now." Maya's hand shook slightly as she reached for her napkin. She bent down, dabbing at the spreading stain. The man leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his grin smug and cruel. "Pathetic. Look at this, crawling on the floor like it's the only thing you're good for." Around them, diners stiffened. Some whispered, some shook their heads. But still no one intervened. The silence grew heavier, thicker, like a fog suffocating the room. From the corner, Elena took a step forward, anger flashing in her eyes. But Mr. Carter, the owner, raised a hand discreetly, stopping her. His gaze was locked on the scene, his expression unreadable. Maya dabbed the floor, humiliation burning through her veins. She could feel the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on her. She wanted to scream, to fight back, to tell him the truth, but her dignity was caught between pride and survival. The man's voice cut through again. "Don't forget under the chair. I don't want to step in your mess." Maya lowered her eyes, her throat tight. She bent further, her knees brushing the cold floor. And then, from above, his laughter. Low at first, then louder, drawing attention like a spotlight. "Look at that. Maybe you're better suited for janitor work, scrubbing floors." The cruelty was deliberate, sharp as a blade. Maya froze, her napkin clenched in her hand. A storm of emotions raged inside her. Shame, anger, sorrow. And beneath it all, a voice, faint but steady. "God doesn't abandon the just." She rose slowly, standing tall despite the stain still spread across the tablecloth. She looked him in the eye, her own gaze steady now, unbroken. "Your table will be taken care of, sir," she said, her voice quiet but firm. For a moment the man faltered, his grin flickering, but then he leaned back again, chuckling. "That's right. Do as you're told." Maya turned, walking toward the service station, her back straight, her spirit fragile but unbent. Behind her, whispers began to ripple louder through the restaurant. The cruelty had crossed a line. The silence of the witnesses was cracking, piece by piece. And in the shadows, Mr. Carter's eyes narrowed. His patience was wearing thin. The battle was far from over. The break room was a narrow rectangle of fluorescent light and beige walls. A vending machine hummed in the corner, its glass reflecting Maya's tired face as if it were a mirror. She set her tray down, untied her apron with shaky fingers, and pressed her palms flat on the table to stop the trembling. "I could quit," she said under her breath, tasting the thought like metal. "Just walk out." Elena slipped in quietly, closing the door with a soft click. "You don't have to prove anything to him, honey." Her tone was gentle, but there was steel under it. "If you want to switch sections, I'll cover." Maya lifted her eyes. "If I move, he wins. He'll think he can do this to anyone." She swallowed. And rent is due on Friday. Elena's expression softened. You're not alone. Maya nodded, though the grief sitting in her chest felt immeasurably heavy. She slid her phone from her pocket, thumb hovering over her mother's contact. For a second, she almost hit call, almost asked to hear that soothing voice say everything would be okay. Instead, she opened a text from earlier that week. Proud of you, baby. God sees. God keeps. She let the words sink in, breathing them like air. Her gaze caught on the tiny silver cross at her neck. She pinched it gently between two fingers and closed her eyes. Lord, I need a spine that doesn't break, she whispered. I need your eyes on me. Don't let me be small. On the other side of the wall, a burst of laughter rose, the cruel, careless kind. It smacked against her ribs like a dare. Maya stood, retied her apron and straightened her posture until her shoulders found their natural height. Leaving would be easy. Staying with dignity would be the mark. Luis, a busser barely out of high school, poked his head in. Hey, chef says your table's asking for more steak sauce. He hesitated, then added in a rush, that guy's a jerk. Sorry. Thanks, Luis. Her voice steadied. We'll get through it. They stepped into the service hall. Mr. Carter stood near the host stand, tablet in hand, eyes flicking between the dining room and a cluster of security camera feeds. He didn't look at Maya, but his jaw was set. Under his breath, he told the host, make sure aisle 3 stays clear. Then to no one in particular, timestamps are rolling. Maya caught it, the cameras, the angle, the patience that wasn't passivity. Something coiled inside her, not fear, not quite hope. Readiness. Back at the pass, Chef Andre slid over a ramekin. House steak sauce, he said. Tableside pour. You want me to walk with you? I've got it, chef. She picked up the ramekin and a clean linen, then paused, gathering not just items, but resolve. She would serve perfectly. She would not kneel again. If he asked for humiliation, the answer would be no. Calmly, professionally, unshakably no. Maya stepped into the dining room. Conversations stumbled and stuttered as she passed. At table 12, the man lounged like a judge in chambers, one arm draped over the chair, the other tracing the rim of his wineglass. Sir, Maya said evenly, setting the ramekin near his plate. Your sauce. He looked up, smile thin. About time. He lifted his napkin and dropped it onto the table, eyes flicking to the stain like a trophy. Since you like cleaning so much, you can get under the table next. My shoes caught the spill. Maya felt the room sway, then settle. She stood still, counted one breath, then another. I'm happy to refresh your napkin and replace the tablecloth after your meal, sir, she said. I can bring club soda for the floor, but I won't get on my knees. A hush rippled outward. A teenager across the aisle lowered her phone, eyes wide. The older woman who'd gone quiet earlier straightened in her chair, a small nod of approval flickering across her face. The man's smile curdled. You won't? I will serve your table with excellence, Maya replied, voice low but steady. And I will treat you with respect. Personal insults or degrading requests won't be part of your service. He stared at her, thrown for a beat by the firmness without bite. Then he laughed, loud and forced. Hear that? The help's making rules. He leaned forward, eyes glittering. You'll do what I say. That is the rule here. Maya did not step back. Your entree is cooked to your preference. Your sauce is at hand. If you need anything related to your meal, I'll take care of it. Something shifted in the room. The silence wasn't cowardly now. It was watchful, expectant. Small acts of courage have a sound. Soft like a match catching, but it carries. From the corner, Elena exhaled slowly, relief and pride softening her shoulders. Luis stood near a bus station, ready with fresh linen as if it were a shield. The man leaned over the table, voice dropping to a hiss meant only for her. You think God's on your side, girl? Maya's eyes did not waver. I know he doesn't abandon the just. A vein flickered at his temple. He reached for his glass, sloshed wine to the rim, then set it down too hard. "Get me the owner," he snapped suddenly, the confidence returning in a wave. "If you won't do your job, I'll get someone who understands what service means." Maya inclined her head. "I'll let Mr. Carter know you'd like to speak to him." She turned, every step measured, refusing to rush for his temper. As she approached the host stand, Mr. Carter closed his tablet and met her halfway. In his eyes, she read a decision forming, a calculus of timing, evidence, and consequence. "I'm here," he murmured, voice calm, almost serene. "Go refill table 7. I'll handle 12. Maya nodded once. Something hot and heavy lifted from her throat. She wasn't leaving. She wasn't breaking. She was handing the next move to someone who had been watching all along. She moved toward table 7, chin level, steps even, the smallest, strongest rebellion, to remain. And behind her, the owner straightened his jacket and walked toward table 12 like a judge entering a courtroom, where the verdict was already written in the light. Mr. Carter was not a man easily rattled. For 20 years he had run Golden Taste, watching couples fall in love over candle-lit dinners, families celebrate milestones, and strangers become regulars. He believed in hospitality, but he also believed in dignity. And tonight, he had been watching carefully. From his discreet post near the host stand, his sharp eyes followed every cruel word the man at table 12 had flung. He had seen the soup spill. He had heard the mocking laughter. And most of all, he had seen Maya, her composure, her restraint, and the quiet courage she carried like armor. "Sir, table 12 is demanding you," whispered the host nervously. Mr. Carter nodded once, calm. "I know." He didn't move right away. Instead, he tapped his tablet, reviewing the camera feed that had been rolling since the man arrived. Every insult, every sneer, every deliberate act was documented. Mr. Carter's lips pressed into a firm line. This was no longer just a customer being difficult. This was targeted cruelty. He slipped the tablet into his jacket pocket and walked slowly through the dining room, not toward table 12, but past it. He stopped at table 9, greeting a couple warmly. He adjusted a chair for an elderly guest at table 5. All the while he circled closer, watching the arrogant man without being noticed. At table 12, the man was still smirking, twirling his fork between two fingers like a scepter. He leaned toward another guest at a nearby table. "Back in my day," he bragged, voice loud, "service staff knew their place. They didn't talk back. Now they think they deserve respect? Ridiculous." A ripple of discomfort spread through the tables around him. Guests looked down at their plates, embarrassed not for Maya, but for him. Mr. Carter finally stopped near Elena, who was refilling water at table 8. In a low voice, he asked, "How's Maya holding up?" Elena's eyes flicked toward table 12. "Better than most would. He's been tearing her down all night." Mr. Carter gave a slow nod. "And the staff?" "Angry. Afraid. Some want to intervene, but they don't know if they'll get in trouble for speaking up." He placed a steady hand on Elena's shoulder. "No one here will ever be punished for standing with dignity. Remember that." Her throat tightened. She nodded quickly and turned away before her emotions betrayed her. Mr. Carter moved toward the bar, catching the bartender's eye. "Keep the bill ready for table 12. Don't run it yet." The bartender frowned. "Are you?" "Just keep it ready," Carter said firmly. Across the room, Maya was serving table 7, her smile small but genuine as she poured water for a young couple. Mr. Carter noticed the way her shoulders stayed square, the way she held herself despite the weight pressing down. She wasn't broken, though the man had tried. Back at table 12, the customer slammed his hand against the table, rattling the cutlery. "Where is he?" he barked. "I asked for the owner 5 minutes ago. Am I not important enough to be heard?" The outburst silenced half the room. Every eye turned toward him. Mr. Carter finally stepped forward. His shoes clicked against the polished floor as he approached, his face calm, unreadable. "Good evening, sir," he said smoothly, stopping at the edge of the table. "I hear you've been asking for me." The man leaned back in his chair, smugness dripping from his grin. Finally, "Yes, I have some complaints about your staff." He waved a dismissive hand toward Maya's section. "If you care about your restaurant's reputation, you'll listen closely." Mr. Carter inclined his head slightly, his voice steady. "I've been listening all night." The man froze for a split second, his smirk faltering. Then he chuckled, trying to recover. "Good. Then you know the problem. That girl doesn't belong here. She's rude, incompetent, and disrespectful." Around them, forks paused midair, glasses lowered slowly to tables. Guests leaned in, waiting. Mr. Carter's eyes never left the man's, calm, focused, unwavering. "I know exactly what's been happening, and I will deal with it." The man leaned back again, confident he had won. Glad to hear it. But what he didn't know was that the tide was turning, and the owner's patience had finally reached its end. The confrontation was about to begin. "Mr. Carter stopped at table 12 like a calm tide meeting a storm. His voice was measured, but it carried. "Good evening. I'm the owner. You asked to speak with me." The man dabbed his lips with his napkin, theatrically composed. "Finally. Your waitress is incompetent and insubordinate. She's refused basic requests and made a spectacle of this meal." A murmur rolled through the room. Maya stood a few steps back, close enough to be summoned, far enough not to be trapped. Her hands were still, her chin lifted. Mr. Carter's gaze didn't waver. "What specific request did she refuse, sir?" The man smirked. "Cleaning, service, respect." He tilted his head toward Maya. "She needs to understand her place." Mr. Carter's jaw set. The piano at the far end stopped mid-phrase as the pianist sensed the air shift. Cutlery quieted against porcelain. The restaurant listened. "Allow me to be clear about everyone's place," Mr. Carter said evenly. "Guests are served with excellence when staff are treated with dignity. That is the rule here." A few diners exhaled, relief flickering like candles catching flame. The man laughed, loud and brittle. "Cute speech. Here's how this will go. You comp my meal, you apologize for her behavior, and you remove her from my section. Or I make sure everyone in this city knows your restaurant tolerates rudeness." Mr. Carter folded his hands behind his back. "We don't comp bullying. And we don't remove employees for refusing degrading requests. My staff is safe here." The man's face darkened. "Safe? She spilled soup, Mr. Carter lifted one hand, a gentle, authoritative stop. "Sir, the soup was spilled deliberately. By you." A ripple of gasps. The man's confidence faltered, then snapped back. "Prove it." "I can," Mr. Carter replied. "But I prefer to resolve things without public humiliation." The man leaned forward, voice a hiss. "Do you know who I am?" Across the aisle, Elena set a water pitcher down carefully, eyes glinting. Luis edged closer with fresh linens, ready like a squire before a duel. "I know exactly who you are in this room," Mr. Carter said. "A guest who has crossed the line." The man scoffed and flicked crumbs toward the floor. "Then get her over here. She's going to wipe my shoes. If she wants to keep this job." Maya felt the room sway, then steady into a new kind of silence, one weighted with expectation, not fear. She took a single step forward. "Sir, I will not do that," she said, calm as a plumb line. "I will serve your table with respect. I won't accept humiliation." "Enough," the man snapped, standing so abruptly his chair scraped. "You'll do what you're told." Mr. Carter stepped in, the boundary clear as a doorframe. "No, she won't." Their eyes locked. The restaurant held its breath. "Here are your choices," Mr. Carter said, voice steady. "Option 1, you finish your meal respectfully, apologize to my server, and we put this behind us. Option 2, you leave now, and your bill is settled in full." The man blinked, stunned by the simplicity. "You can't talk to me like that." "I just did." A tremor of applause started, quickly muffled into an uneasy quiet. People weren't sure if they were allowed to cheer for decency. But hope had sparked. The man's lips curled. "You want a scene?" Fine. He reached for his wine glass, sloshed it so the liquid bled across the tablecloth again, a red wound spreading. Since you care about dignity, let your little saint clean that up. Maya didn't flinch. We'll replace the cloth after you've left. Something in the room lifted. Pride, relief, courage, like windows opening to fresh air. Mr. Carter nodded to the bartender. The printer behind the bar chirped. A folded check appeared. The bartender handed it to Elena, who delivered it with the composure of a judge's clerk. Your check, sir, Mr. Carter said. We'll take payment now. The man stared at the paper, the numbers meaningless beneath the weight of the moment. Color climbed his neck. I'm not paying for this insult. You are, Mr. Carter replied, and then you'll go. The man looked around for allies and found only mirrors of his own ugliness reflecting back at him. The older woman who had been silent earlier raised her chin. You owe that young lady an apology, she said, voice ringing. Her companion put a steadying hand on her arm, but she didn't shrink. We all saw what you did. Others murmured in agreement. A man at a corner table lifted his phone, screen recording still glowing. We've been watching, he said softly. The customer's bravado cracked. This is harassment, he sputtered. I'll have your license, You'll pay, Mr. Carter said, or the police will be invited to the conversation. He paused, then added, and if you prefer evidence, we have it. A silence like a gavel strike. The man's hand shook as he fumbled for his wallet. He slapped a card onto the check presenter. Run it, he growled. And you'll regret this, he spat at Maya. She met his glare without blinking. Sir, I wish you kindness, she said quietly. But not at the cost of my dignity. The machine beeped, receipt printed. Elena set the slip down with a pen. The man scratched a furious signature, tore his copy, and shoved his chair back so hard it skidded. Out, Mr. Carter said, not unkind but immovable. The man snatched his coat. You'll hear from me. You'll hear from the truth, Mr. Carter answered. The door swung open, then shut behind the storm he carried with him. Inside, the room exhaled as one body. But the reckoning was not over. Evidence waited, and so did justice. The heavy door swung shut behind the man, and for a moment the restaurant stood in stunned silence. The echoes of his arrogance still lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Then slowly the quiet gave way to whispers, to the clinking of glasses, to the low hum of relief. Maya stood frozen near the service station, her heart still pounding. She felt both exposed and invisible, as though the room were seeing her for the first time. And yet she wanted to disappear. Mr. Carter remained at table 12, straightening the napkin and sliding the stained cloth aside with deliberate care. His calmness filled the room, steady as stone. Then he raised his voice, not loud, but strong enough to carry. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your patience tonight. The restaurant grew still again, all eyes turning toward him. What happened here, he continued, is not who we are. Not as a restaurant, not as a community. He glanced toward Maya. Our staff deserves respect, always. And tonight, one of them faced cruelty that no one should ever endure. Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to shrink, but at the same time, she felt something rising inside her. Pride, fragile, but real. Mr. Carter reached into his jacket and lifted the small tablet. He tapped the screen, and within seconds the large TV above the bar flickered to life. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the security footage played. The man tilting the soup bowl, sneering, laughing, ordering Maya to clean the floor. Every cruel word, every humiliating gesture filled the screen. This is what happened, Mr. Carter said firmly. And this is why I stood against it. Because silence in the face of cruelty makes us complicit. And here, his voice hardened, we will not be complicit. The footage ended, the screen fading back to the restaurant's logo. The silence that followed was different now, thick, electric, heavy with justice. The older woman who had spoken earlier lifted her glass high. To dignity, she said clearly. Others followed. Glasses clinked. A ripple of applause spread, growing louder, swelling until the entire dining room rang with the sound. Maya pressed a hand to her chest, her throat tightening. She blinked against tears, not from humiliation this time, but from something closer to healing. Elena leaned toward her, whispering, "They see you now. They see the truth." Mr. Carter approached Maya, his expression softening. "You carried yourself with strength tonight," he said. "And I want everyone here to know. You belong here. This restaurant is as much yours as it is mine." Applause rose again. Maya bowed her head slightly, overwhelmed. At that moment, the bartender approached Mr. Carter with a phone in his hand. "Sir, that man who left? Someone already posted a clip of him online. It's spreading fast." Mr. Carter sighed. "The truth has a way of traveling." He glanced at Maya. "Don't worry, you won't face this storm alone." The whispers around the room confirmed it. People were already taking sides, and this time, the side of justice was louder. Maya drew a breath, her voice steady though her heart still quivered. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. And thank you, everyone, for not letting silence win." From the corner, Luis, the young busser, raised his voice nervously but sincerely. "You're braver than all of us tonight, Maya." The words hung in the air, sincere and raw. For the first time that night, Maya allowed herself a small smile. "I wasn't brave alone," she said quietly. "God stood with me." The applause swelled again, not polite this time, but fierce, cathartic, alive. Justice had come. Not in a courtroom, not in a headline, but right there, in the place where cruelty had tried to break her. And Maya realized, dignity defended is justice served. The applause finally softened, giving way to murmurs of admiration and relief. The restaurant no longer felt heavy with tension. It glowed with something else. Solidarity. Maya stood at the center of it, her hands trembling slightly, her heart beating so loudly she could hear it in her ears. For the first time all evening, she felt seen not as someone to be humiliated, but as someone worthy of respect. Mr. Carter placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. His voice, calm but firm, carried through the dining room. "Maya has shown us all what dignity looks like. She has reminded us that true strength isn't about wealth or status or arrogance. It's about standing tall even when others try to break you." A wave of nods swept the room. Glasses lifted again, quieter this time, but deeply sincere. One man at a nearby table spoke up. "You handled yourself better than most of us would have. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Others echoed him softly. "Me too. We should have said something. She deserved better." Maya's eyes stung. She shook her head gently. "Don't apologize to me. Just promise. Next time, don't be silent. Not for me. Not for anyone." Her words struck deeper than any lecture could. A few guests bowed their heads, humbled. At that moment, the little girl from earlier tugged at her mother's sleeve, then walked up shyly with a half-eaten roll in her hand. She looked up at Maya with wide, innocent eyes. "You were really brave," the child said. Maya crouched, tears finally slipping free as she smiled at the girl. "Thank you, sweetheart. But remember, kindness is braver than cruelty." The girl nodded solemnly, as if she'd been handed a treasure. "Mr." Carter cleared his throat and turned to the entire dining room. "As of tonight, Maya will no longer just be one of our servers. She will be promoted to shift supervisor. Because leadership isn't about power, it's about grace under pressure. And she's shown us more grace tonight than many of us see in a lifetime." Gasps and cheers erupted. Elena clasped her hands together, beaming with pride. Luis fist-pumped the air like a younger brother celebrating his sister's victory. Maya froze, overwhelmed. "Mr. Carter, I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," he replied warmly. "Just keep being who you are." The room stood as one. Guests rose from their seats in a spontaneous ovation, not just for service, not just for resilience, but for justice. Tears blurred Maya's vision as she pressed her hand over her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking. Thank you all. For a brief golden moment, the restaurant didn't feel like a business. It felt like a family, one that had learned something important that night. As the clapping slowed, the piano began again, softer this time, almost like a hymn. The melody wrapped around the room, sealing the night in reverence. Maya stepped back, closing her eyes for just a second. In the quiet of her spirit, she whispered, "Thank you, Lord. You didn't leave me. You carried me through." And as she opened them again, she stood taller, not as a victim of cruelty, but as a woman who had faced it, endured it, and emerged stronger. Justice had come. Dignity had won. And the story of Maya, the waitress who refused to bow to hatred, would echo long after the last dish was cleared. Have you ever witnessed injustice like this? Did you stay silent? Or did you speak up? Tell us your story in the comments below. Do you believe that God always brings justice in the end? Write your thoughts, we want to hear from you, and remember, never lose hope. Justice may take time, but it always arrives. The good always wins in the end.